Marcus Thompson had been a Royal Guard for 8 years. Every morning, he put on his red uniform with gold buttons and stood outside Buckingham Palace. Tourists took pictures with him. Children waved at him. He never moved or smiled back. That was his job. On Tuesday morning, the weather was cold and rainy. Marcus stood at his post near the main gate. Water dripped from his black hat onto his shoulders. His feet were getting wet, but he did not move. Royal Guards never showed weakness. Around noon, a group of teenagers walked by. They were laughing and pointing at Marcus. One boy had a phone out, recording everything. Another had a metal pipe in his hand. Marcus noticed, but kept looking straight ahead. He had seen troublemakers before. The boy with the pipe stepped closer. His friends were behind him, still laughing. The boy's name was Jake Miller. He was 17 and always got into trouble at school. His friends dared him to do something crazy. Jake wanted to look tough in front of them. "Hey, statue man," Jake called out. "Can you hear me?" Marcus did not respond. His training taught him to ignore people who tried to make him react. Jake got angry. He did not like being ignored. The crowd of tourists started watching. Some people took out their phones to record. They thought they would see something funny. Jake raised the metal pipe above his head. Nobody thought he would really do it. Jake swung the pipe hard at Marcus's shoulder. The metal hit with a loud crack. Pain shot through Marcus's body. The pipe left a dent in his uniform. Something amazing happened next. Marcus did not fall down, did not cry out. He did not even blink. The crowd went silent. Even Jake stopped laughing. Everyone expected the guard to fall or fight back. Instead, Marcus stood perfectly still. His face showed no pain. His eyes looked straight ahead. It was like nothing had happened at all. Jake looked confused. He hit the guard as hard as he could. Why was nothing happening? The tourists stared in shock. Some lowered their phones. This was not funny anymore. It was something else entirely. A small girl in the crowd started crying. Her mother picked her up and walked away quickly. An old man shook his head in disgust. Jake's friends stopped cheering. He suddenly felt ashamed of what they had done. Marcus felt the pain burning in his shoulder. The metal pipe had hit bone. His uniform was torn where it struck. But he had made a promise when he became a Royal Guard. He would never break, no matter what happened. Not for anyone. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but it was only seconds. Jake stood there holding the metal pipe, his hand shaking now. He had expected the guard to fall down or at least show some reaction. Instead, Marcus remained like a statue carved from stone. An elderly woman named Mrs. Henderson pushed through the crowd. She had been visiting London with her grandchildren when she saw what happened. Her face was red with anger. She walked straight up to Jake and grabbed the pipe from his hands. "What is wrong with you?" she shouted at Jake. "This man is doing his job. He serves his country with honor." Jake tried to back away, but Mrs. Henderson followed him. "You should be ashamed of yourself." Jake's friends started walking away quickly. They did not want to be part of this anymore. Jake felt alone and stupid. He looked at Marcus again, hoping to see some sign that the guard was okay. But Marcus's face showed nothing at all. A police officer named Constable Williams had been patrolling. Nearby, when he heard the commotion, he ran over and saw the dented uniform and the metal pipe in Mrs. Henderson's hands. Right away, he knew what had happened. "Nobody move," Constable Williams said in a loud voice. He looked at Jake, who was now very pale. "Did you assault this guard?" Jake wanted to lie, but dozens of people had seen everything. Many had recorded it on their phones. "I didn't mean to hurt him," Jake whispered. "I thought it would be funny. I thought he would just move or something." The officer shook his head. Attacking a royal guard was a serious crime. While this was happening, Marcus was fighting his own battle inside. The pain in his shoulder was getting worse. He could feel blood running down his arm inside his uniform. His vision was getting blurry from the shock, but he kept standing straight. Marcus remembered his training at the Royal Military Academy. His instructor, Sergeant Davies, had told him about the great guards who came before him. Men who stood their posts during World War II while bombs fell around them. Guards who protected the royal family even when their own lives were in danger. A royal guard is not just a man in a uniform, Sergeant Davies had said. He is a symbol. He represents something bigger than himself. When people see you standing strong, they remember what honor looks like. Now Marcus understood what those words really meant. Every person in that crowd was learning something important. They were seeing what it meant to have real strength. Not the fake strength of hitting someone with a pipe, but the true strength of standing firm when everything around you falls apart. A small boy tugged on his mother's coat. "Mommy, why doesn't the guard fall down?" The mother looked at Marcus with new respect in her eyes. "'Cause he's very brave, sweetheart. Much braver than we knew." The crowd was growing larger. People heard about what happened and came to see. For themselves, they wanted to witness this incredible display of discipline and courage. Word was spreading quickly through social media about the guard who would not break. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was having lunch in a cafe across the street when someone ran in shouting about the incident. She grabbed her medical bag and rushed outside. As a doctor who worked near the palace, she had treated royal guards before. It knew how seriously they took their duty. When Dr. Mitchell reached the crowd, she could see that Marcus was in pain, even though he hid it well. His breathing was slightly faster than normal. There was a small tremor in his left hand that only a trained eye would notice. She knew he needed medical attention, but she also knew he would never ask for it. Constable Williams was now taking statements from witnesses. Jake sat on a nearby bench with his head in his hands. The reality of what he had done was hitting him hard. This was not a game anymore. He had hurt someone who was just doing their job. Officer, Dr. Mitchell approached Constable Williams. "That guard needs medical attention. I can see signs of injury, but he won't break position to get help." The officer nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. "Guard," Constable Williams called out formally. "Medical assistance is available if required." Marcus's eyes shifted slightly toward the officer, but he did not speak. In the Royal Guard, he only spoke when directly ordered to by a superior officer. Captain James Morrison was Marcus's commanding officer. Someone had called him about the incident, and he was now pushing through the crowd. When he saw Marcus standing at his post with a damaged uniform, his heart filled with both pride and concern. Captain Morrison had served as a Royal Guard for 15 years before being promoted. He knew exactly what Marcus was going through. The physical pain was nothing compared to the mental strength it took to ignore every instinct telling you to react. "Thompson," Captain Morrison said as he approached Marcus. This was the first time. Someone had used Marcus's name since the incident began. "Report all secure, sir," Marcus replied in a steady voice. These were the first words he had spoken since being attacked. The crowd leaned in to hear his voice. It was strong and clear, showing no sign of weakness. Captain Morrison walked around Marcus, inspecting the damage. The dent in the uniform was deep. The fabric was torn in several places. But Marcus had not moved an inch from his assigned position. "Outstanding discipline, Thompson," the captain said loud enough for everyone to hear. "However, medical evaluation is now required. Dr. Mitchell will examine you while you maintain position." This was perfect. Marcus could get medical help without breaking his post. Dr. Mitchell moved carefully around Marcus, checking his injuries while he stood perfectly still. The crowd watched in amazement as she worked around the unmovable guard. "Possible fracture?" "In the shoulder," Dr. Mitchell whispered to Captain Morrison. "Definitely needs x-rays, but his vital signs are stable." The captain nodded. Marcus was tough, but even tough soldiers needed medical care. Jake watched all of this happen. He saw how the other guards, the police, the doctor, and even strangers in the crowd all treated Marcus with incredible respect. This man had shown more strength in 10 minutes than Jake had shown in his entire life. Tears started running down Jake's face. He stood up and walked toward Marcus. Constable Williams moved to stop him, but Captain Morrison held up his hand. He wanted to see what the boy would do. Jake stopped 3 feet away from Marcus. His hands were shaking as he looked up at the guard's face. Marcus's eyes remained focused straight ahead, but Jake could see the strength and dignity in them. It made him feel even smaller than before. "Sorry," Jake said, in a voice barely above a whisper. "I'm really, really sorry." The crowd was so quiet, they could hear every word. "I don't know why I did that. I was being stupid. You didn't deserve that." Marcus could hear every word, but his training prevented him from responding. Jake stood there for a long moment, hoping for some sign of forgiveness. When none came, he slowly walked back to where Constable Williams was waiting. Meanwhile, word of the incident was spreading beyond the crowd. News reporters were arriving. Social media posts about the unbreakable guard were being shared thousands of times. Videos of Marcus standing firm after the attack were going viral around the world. Rebecca Thompson, Marcus's wife, was at home when her neighbor called with the news. Her heart stopped when she heard that Marcus had been attacked. Drove to the palace, her mind racing with worry and fear, when Rebecca arrived. She could see the crowd in the news cameras. She pushed through until she saw Marcus standing at his post. Even from a distance, she could tell he was hurt. His left shoulder was slightly lower than his right, but he was standing strong, just like always. Rebecca had been married to Marcus for 5 years. She knew better than anyone what it cost him to be a royal guard. The long hours, the physical demands, the mental discipline required. She had seen him come home exhausted but never complaining. Captain Morrison noticed Rebecca in the crowd and walked over to her. "Mrs. Thompson," he said gently, "your husband has shown extraordinary courage today. He's injured, but he refuses to leave his post. That's my Marcus," Rebecca said with tears in her eyes. "He would rather die than abandon his duty." She was proud and terrified at the same time. She was proud of his strength, terrified of what it might cost him. Dr. Mitchell finished her examination and spoke quietly with Captain Morrison. "He needs to go to the hospital soon. Shoulder injury could get worse if we wait too long, but I understand the situation." The captain looked at his watch. Marcus's shift was scheduled to end in 2 hours. In normal circumstances, they would wait. These were not normal circumstances. The whole world was now watching. "Thompson," Captain Morrison said, stepping in front of Marcus, "you have served with exceptional honor today. Your duty shift is complete. Medical attention is now ordered." Marcus blinked once, the smallest possible acknowledgement. Slowly, he took one step back from his position. The crowd held its breath. After standing motionless for hours, even this small movement seemed incredible. But Marcus was not finished. Instead of walking away, he performed something amazing. He began the formal changing of the guard ceremony, even though no replacement guard was there. He marched in perfect formation, his rifle held high despite his injured shoulder. The crowd watched in awe as Marcus completed every step of the ceremony with military precision. His boots clicked on the pavement in perfect rhythm. His movements were sharp and exact. Even injured, even after everything that happened, he was going to end his duty the right way. When the ceremony was complete, Marcus finally allowed himself to relax. His shoulders sagged slightly. His breathing became deeper. For the first time since the attack, he looked human instead of like a living statue. The crowd began to applaud. It started with one person, then spread through the entire group. They were not just clapping for a guard who did his job. They were applauding a man who had shown them what real courage looked like. Marcus walked toward the ambulance that Dr. Mitchell had called. Each step was painful, but he kept his back straight and his head high. Rebecca ran to meet him, and for the first time since the incident, Marcus smiled. "I'm okay," he whispered to his wife as she hugged him carefully. "It hurt, but I'm okay." Rebecca held him tight, feeling how much he was trembling. The adrenaline was finally wearing off, and his body was starting to react to everything that had happened. At the hospital, X-rays showed that Marcus had a cracked rib and severe bruising in his shoulder. The doctor was amazed that he had been able to stand normally with those injuries. Most people would have collapsed immediately, the doctor told Rebecca. "Your husband has incredible pain tolerance." While Marcus was being treated, the story was spreading around the world. News channels in America, Australia, Japan, and dozens of other countries were reporting on the royal guard who would not break. The video had been viewed millions of times. People were calling Marcus a hero. Military leaders from different countries were praising his discipline. Even the Queen's private secretary released a statement saying that Marcus represented the very best of British service and honor, but the most important reaction came from an unexpected place. Jake Miller was at the police station where he had been charged with assault. He asked if he could write a letter to Marcus. Constable Williams was surprised but agreed to help. "Dear Guard Thompson," Jake wrote, "I know saying sorry is not enough for what I did to you. I have been thinking about why I hurt you, and I think it was because I wanted to feel powerful. But watching you stand strong after I hit you showed me what real power looks like. Real power is not hurting people who cannot fight back. Real power is being strong enough to protect others, even when it costs you something. I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to be more like you and less like the person I was today. I hope someday you can forgive me." When Marcus read the letter the next day, he was quiet for a long time. Rebecca watched him think about what to say. Finally, Marcus picked up a pen and wrote a reply. "Dear Jake," he wrote, "everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what we learn from them. You learned something important yesterday, and that makes you different from the person who hit me. I forgive you. I hope you will use this experience to become the man you are meant to be. A good man makes the world better. A great man helps others become good too. You have the chance to be great." The exchange of letters was reported in the news, and people were even more impressed with Marcus. He had shown strength during the attack, but showing forgiveness afterward proved that his character ran even deeper than anyone knew. Schools started inviting Marcus to speak to students about discipline and honor. Military academies wanted him to train their cadets. But Marcus was not interested in fame or attention. He just wanted to go back to his post and do his job. 2 weeks later, Marcus returned to duty. His shoulder was still sore, but the doctors cleared him for light duties. When he arrived at Buckingham Palace that morning, he found something unexpected waiting for him. Hundreds of people had gathered outside the gates. They were not tourists taking pictures. They were people who had come specifically to see Marcus. Some held signs thanking him for his service. Others had brought flowers and letters. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who had scolded Jake, was there with her grandchildren. "We wanted to thank you properly," she told Marcus. "She taught my grandchildren something important that day. They understand now what it means to have real strength." Captain Morrison pulled Marcus aside before he took his post. "Thompson, I have news. The Queen herself has requested to meet with you. She wants to personally thank you for your service." Marcus was shocked. In 8 years as a royal guard, he had never imagined he would meet the Queen. "Sir, I was just doing my job," Marcus replied. Captain Morrison smiled. "That's exactly why she wants to meet you. You represent everything the Royal Guard stands for." But the most meaningful moment came when Marcus saw a familiar figure in the crowd. Jake Miller was there with his parents. He had been sentenced to community service and was required to attend anger management classes, but he had come to the palace on his own. Jake approached Marcus nervously. "Guard Thompson," he said formally, "I got your letter. Thank you for forgiving me. I wanted you to know that I have been volunteering at a youth center, trying to help other kids who are angry like I was." Marcus looked at Jake and saw a completely different person from the boy who had attacked him. This Jake stood up straight, spoke respectfully, and looked him in the eye. "That's good to hear, Jake. Keep helping others. It'll make you stronger than any pipe ever could." When Marcus took his position that day, something had changed. The tourists still took pictures, but they did so with more respect. Children still waved, but their parents explained why the guards were important. People understood now that these men in red uniforms were not just decorations. They were symbols of strength, honor, and service. Throughout the day, people approached Marcus with thanks and respect. A veteran from World War II saluted him. A young mother told him he had inspired her to teach her children about courage. A group of school children sang the national anthem for him. Marcus stood at his post, unmoved by the attention, just as he had stood unmoved by the attack. But inside, he felt something powerful, felt the weight of what he represented, not just to his country, but to everyone who needed to see that good people still existed in the world. At the end of his shift, Marcus performed the changing of the guard ceremony once again, but this time, when he finished, he did something he had never done before. He looked directly at the crowd and nodded once. A small acknowledgement of their support and respect. The crowd erupted in applause. But Marcus was already walking away. He had done his job, just like always. Tomorrow, he would return to his post, ready to serve with the same honor and strength that had made him famous. Because being a royal guard was not about the recognition or praise, it was about standing firm when everything around you tries to make you fall. And Marcus Thompson would never fall.